It is, mate, yeah. It's coming through, mate. Right, hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Blue Light Banter podcast. Today we are joined by my best mate, Angus Chambers, who has been a police officer with the Police Service of Scotland for the last 10 years. And today we are going to discuss his experience dealing with PTSD after being involved in a horrific murder in K Division. Hello, Angus. How are you?
Good morning, Gregor. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm good, mate. I'm good. So, for those people that don't know, when did you join Police Scotland?
I joined Police Scotland in May 2014, so 10 years ago. Was at college with you, and
Yes.
was fortunate enough to be placed in Paisley with you.
Yeah, at the college together, first arrest together during the Commonwealth Games, and same division. Yeah. And where are you working now?
Still in Paisley, but no longer attached to K Division. Now part of Criminal Justice Services Division in my Cush TV office job.
Nice. So is there anything that you would like to talk about specifically from your time in the police? Did you enjoy being a cop? Because I know you enjoyed it when we were working together, certainly all those years ago, but would you say you've kind of enjoyed your
Absolutely. On certain days, it is the best job in the world. You know, it's very rewarding helping people, but also, I basically joined the police because I had an unhealthy obsession with police interceptors, and all I wanted to do was drive police cars on blue lights and smash doors in legal. Yeah, so that sort of stuff, the public order stuff, it's all great fun and continues, to interest me. But there's obviously other things that come with the job, which some days aren't as good as others.
Yeah.
When you're on a fishy locus or something.
But we definitely had our fair share of fun, didn't we? Certainly when we first joined, right? Not that we can go into detail, but yeah, we definitely had our fair share of fun. So do you still do public order stuff, mate?
I don't at the moment, no. I'm out of card, so I don't think they're very happy about that. But no, that was good fun as well.
Yeah. I know we're away from it. Cool. Well, let's just dive straight into it then, mate. So obviously, without going into like specifics of street names, people's names, etc., can you give us like a sort of brief synopsis of the incident that you were involved in?
Yeah, so I basically self-generated a couple homicide. It ended up being, but self-generated a one-punch cam. There was no calling about it. I drove up the street that it just happened on and basically dealt with the incident from the outset until ultimately ending my shift, and then following it in the news there. I was on shift, weekend back shift, I think it was at the time. Came across busy street with lots of nightclubs on it, spilling out time. We were just about to finish as well, and there's this chap lying in the middle of the street, just been in a bit of a brawl. One punch and he's on the floor, smashed his head off the floor. Obviously, at the time, didn't know the seriousness of it. Knew that he wasn't responding, and began to, direct resources as to where they needed to go. Locus requested ambulance. Try and rouse the chap and give him first aid. Liaise with supervisor at the same time. These things go through your head a million miles an hour at the time. And then went up to the hospital with him while the rest of the colleagues maintained the locus and started the investigation as they always did. And so we got to the hospital. It became very apparent that this chap was actually not going to make it. I think the term they described it as was his pupils had blown. I think that's something when you have a traumatic head injury, traumatic bleed on the brain. I think the pressure at some point just becomes too much, and at that point you're basically brain dead. There's these machines that will keep you alive, what they need to do with the family and stuff. But you're basically you're done at that point. So that was was quite upsetting. This chap was, I later learned this chap, a young father in the prime of his life, a well-liked chap by all, and really misplaced punch ended it all. So the worst part of it all was being up at the hospital when his family, his immediate family, his parents, who for all intents and purposes were probably in their bed enjoying their kip, were rudely awoken and told you need to get to the hospital, and then thereafter told you're going to have to say your goodbyes. That was that was pretty hard to take, and pretty hard to be around. But I suppose you've got your professional hat on. I recall that weekend in particular. It was an old, it was an old firm weekend. I think I've got the article somewhere. There was like 7 serious assaults and 3 attempted murders or something, and then 2 actual murders. One of which this obviously later became a culpable homicide, but the other one was particularly harrowing as well. One of our other close friends was dealing with that. But yeah, it's I think that being towards the end of the weekend that we'd been absolutely horsed. The shifts that we work were sort of Thursday to Sunday back shift. If it's like an old firm weekend and it's gone and it's payday weekend as well, then it can go absolutely mental. And I think that was maybe something that contributed this incident getting to me as much as it did. But yeah.
And as you said, like, that boy was a decent guy, because we used to see him quite often in the town, didn't we? But it was never really any issue. No. Like, a lot of times some folk will end up, something will catch up with them and they'll say stuff like that, say that I was like a loving father and all this, but he was actually like a decent guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that's what makes these sorts of things so much harder and sadder. Is it's happened a few times in my career, and these people have done nothing wrong, and all of a sudden their life has been taken away from them. I can think of another incident in particular. It's just a chap walking over to his pal's house, and
went to his brother's house to get a PlayStation game, wasn't
it? Yeah, and just met the wrong character on the street, which is just, you can't prevent against it, but it's equally sad. And these are commonplace dealing with them on the front line, but at some point they get to you. I think the fact that he was a young father as well, and it didn't affect me immediately. Obviously, I was sad immediately. I think
Did you get
a trim? Yeah, I got a
trim after it.
I got a trim after it. And initially, I was really sad and quite cut up about what had happened. I remember avidly following it on the news afterwards, and they actually kept this guy alive for like 4 days to donate all of his organs before they turned the machines off, which only made it sadder, but kind of a final gift to this world, and from his family as well. But I was quite sad at the time, I think, because of the sort of needless loss of the culmination of all the other incidents that we dealt with. I remember there was stabbings galore. You're covered in blood all weekend. So that, I had a trim because I'd never really, you join the police. I joined the police at 18, and you're invincible. I remember sitting in the bus with you and the tunes going and the Ramit there in case, we need to go and punt a door. And we just got stuff sorted and you just felt invincible. And then all of a sudden this incident kind of brought back the reality and probably a wee bit of my own mortality as well. Like, oh my God, I'm not invincible. I could be out there tomorrow and I could be dealing with an incident. Some guy could punch me and that'd be it, just like this other guy. I could be gone. So after I had the sort of initial trim, that was it. I kind of laid dormant for quite a long time. I was back to my work. I didn't have any issues. And then I think it must have been about 2017. And then it really sort of kicked off again when my my youngest boy was born, and I became a father to this newborn child. And it's not so much PTSD. I've not been diagnosed with PTSD.
Mm.
A few people I've spoken to have suggested, through like EAP and all that. I went very much in depth with this story and how it's affected me too. EAP is the Employee Assistance Program. They offer things like counselling through occupational health, I believe cognitive behavioural therapy and stuff like that. It's basically, if you get like an occupational health referral, EAP is one of the routes that you can go down to get counselling and help. So I basically, when my wee one was born, all of a sudden I had this like overwhelming anxiety, which was what really kicked it all off. This overwhelming anxiety of my personal safety. All of a sudden I've got this tiny baby to be there for and to look out for. All of a sudden you're getting sent to these calls, guy with a knife, and you're thinking, oh my God, I need to get home to my child. I need to make sure that I stay safe. And you're given a wacky stick and some stingy spray, but you're still, potentially coming up against a guy with a big machete or a knife or so that kind of is where it all reignited. Sort of time between the incident and when it reignited, about 3 years, and then it reignited. I started suffering these sort of anxiety episodes, and it manifested itself in different ways. Incredible bouts, violent butterflies is how I would describe it. And then it sort of manifested itself in my body, and you're constantly being put into this irrational sort of fight or flight response, and my body's reaction was to basically affect my stomach, so constantly needing to go to the toilet and things like that. So yeah, I started struggling with that, asked for a move to somewhere off the shift, and that wasn't even looked at. It was just, no, we're not helping you. If you want assistance, then occupational health is the way.
And had you spoken to the EAP, mate, before you asked for a move?
No, occupational health was the sort of stepping stone to EAP. I got counselling through EAP after speaking to occupational health. I basically had to, at this point, all my cards were laid out on the table, and I basically was forced to go off sick and to speak to occupational health, at which point, I went through EAP, I was given counselling, I think 6 counselling sessions, and then it was basically a case of waiting for the work to make some reasonable adjustments off the back of the occupational health report. Which,
so you basically didn't. Sorry, so you'd basically dealt with this incident then. Obviously, the incident we're talking about before, the couple homicide. Nothing really happened for you then going back to work, and then it was only when the wee one was born, your second, that you then started to get like anxiety off the back of it when you were going to specific calls. So if it was a guy with a knife or an attempt murder or something like that, you would then get anxiety, almost like knots in your stomach, and then you would need to then go to the toilet. Instead of going to the calls, you would then need
and it was only. Sorry.
No, you go. I was going to say, how did you feel about like actually going off sick? Because I know there's probably a few folk who could potentially do with it, but who don't, because like people who genuinely need it are usually the ones who don't go off sick. Do you know what I mean? So how did? Because I've known you for fucking 10 years, mate. So I know you wouldn't do it just to get time off. So how did you feel about going off, knowing the sort of stigma around going off sick?
I discussed this with my counsellor because I went off sick. I hate going off sick. I feel like I'm letting the team down, and I genuinely thought I kind of felt like my hand was forced because I wasn't getting help just by asking for it within the police service, So, but I was still, part of the WhatsApp groups, and I was, the shift WhatsApp group. I was still getting these messages. Oh, what about that shift, it was really the overwhelming feeling of guilt that I was sitting at home waiting the job and occupational health to fix things for me, and obviously going through my counselling. I was sitting at home while my shift was a man down and getting pumped from call to call to call. I was sitting at home getting a full wage for the first 6 months of my sickness. The overwhelming feeling of guilt was one that was really bad. I actually ended up having to just mute the chats and make an active effort not to read them because that was really tough. That I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does, mate. And then, because even that incident you were at, I remember being at the bottom of the street when you guys were up dealing with that, like closing the road off and stuff. And I think even that weekend, I vividly remember us just getting sent from, I remember 2 other murders specifically. I think there was another one that weekend, mate. I think there was 4. And then obviously I remember there was an attempt murder that me and Sean went to, and we were first on scene for that. But I've never been impacted by any of the stuff that we dealt with in the police. So, the only thing I don't understand would be how did you, just for anyone else who is kind of struggling with it and doesn't maybe realise the signs of it, how did you kind of start to notice it? Was it just feeling butterflies when you were going to calls, or was it like night sweats? Was it like the typical kind of stuff that you see? Or
it was basically just the overwhelming feeling of just not wanting to do the job that I was paid to do. Not wanting to put myself in harm's way. But as I say, that was like a late realization that it was all stemming from this incident. At the time, I dealt with the incident, dealt with the trim, and then got on with it and continued my job. And it was only late. So my personal circumstances changed, and I drew levels from that incident of, oh my God, that guy who died was, and it probably wasn't just that incident. We see horrific things we've seen murder victims in bags, and we've seen horrific things happen to innocent children. We've been to RTCs, a child has died, and a build up of these things. But I think I drew levels specifically with that incident, and it was kind of like a delayed response to it. And I didn't realise it until I spoke with my counsellor, and we drew it all out, and actually she was very good in, she didn't give me the answers, but was very good in coaxing the answers out of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember we would go for dog walks, and you would talk to me, certainly, on the walks about what you've been speaking to her about, but she seemed quite good.
Yeah.
So just, again, for anyone who's kind of thinking about reaching out for something like that, or thinks they're maybe kind of struggling with something, so how did you kind of go about that? Did you speak to your gaffer, contact Oggy Health, and then get put in contact with them?
So there's loads of ways that you can go about getting. Obviously, my route to it was occupational health referred me to the employee assistance program, and I spoke to them, and you have to do these questionnaires, and eventually, I think the maximum that the EAP, or certainly it might have changed, but the maximum that the EAP can give you in terms of counselling is like 6 sessions, which is what I got. But there are loads of other options available, certainly to cops in Scotland. There is, I'm trying to think of the names of them now, because I've not actually used them, but I've been signposted to them, and there is resources everywhere to get this help.
Through occupational health as well, mate?
No, not through, just off your own back. I need to talk to someone. There's the,
because I know I went up to the treatment centres.
Yeah, so they are trying to even do wellbeing weeks now, things like that.
Yeah. I think they said they're trying to basically build out like a mental health program for stuff like that. So instead of just doing like physical physio, it's like mental health stuff as well, which again, we can update.
I was actually only recently told about the fact that they do like wellbeing fortnights, and one thing that's always stopped me from going to, I've had a sore knee, or that's one thing that's stopped me from going to the police treatment centres in the past, and I've never but I'm now considering it as the fact that if you're at home with a family, you've got 2 kids on the go, you don't want to leave your partner in that sort of lurch where for 2 weeks you're away, probably, necessarily fixing yourself or getting help towards fixing yourself, but you're also leaving your significant other and your children and your dogs at the house to kind of fend for themselves. However, I'm led to believe there is now, if you organise it far in advance, there is now 2 cottages available at the police treatments, where you can basically just take your kids and they have to stay at the cottage and do what they do when you're doing your classes and stuff, but it's no longer the case that you have to abandon them at home for a week or 2 weeks. So I thought that was quite.
It was a very nice environment as well, mate. When I went up, like I've never been up either, and it was just even for me, although I'm not in the job anymore, like do you know that way when you're just with. It's like a weird thing, when you're just like with cops, you just kind of seem to like gel with everyone.
Yeah,
it was kind of the way it was up there because it was a really nice day. The day I went up as well, there was loads of folks sitting outside, all in the job. Go inside, there's loads of folk doing physio. There's folk in swimming. Like it's just a very nice environment up at the treatment centres.
Absolutely,
which is cool. But yeah, I heard about the cottages recently, mate.
I've never heard a bad thing about the police treatment centres, to be honest. I've never heard anyone call this. It was rubbish. Like it is properly good. So as it should be. But no, I'm trying desperately to think of there's the.
You can even text me with them afterwards, mate, and I'll pop them on the.
Yeah, because there is. I wish I'd actually written them all down because I was. But the main.
You basically got 6 sessions with the women that you were speaking with for yourself.
Yeah.
What were some of the kind of best practices that obviously neither of us can give medical advice on this, but just from your experience, what were some of the best practices that she gave you to sort of help?
I basically ended up just talking through different things and how I felt and sort of working out why I was feeling that. The other beneficial thing that I got from that was how to sort of manage and cope with the anxiety or try to. There's some of it that you can. Sometimes I just can't get out that hole of but there are certain techniques that was taught. Grounding yourself, just being able to take your mind off of that intense worry and certain strategies to do. But I'm not gonna go into detail and try and replicate it because I'll probably say it wrong now because I've probably taken it wrong. But no, just sort of grounding yourself. Yeah, but
like there's coming over you.
Yes.
Sorry, man. Just you go.
I think there's a little delay here, so.
Right, you go.
So basically that, and then sort of working out as well what kind of own protective armours are to fight against this mental strain of what we, for me especially, like I love going out on my bike. Even I'll actively try and commute on my bike in the morning. It's hampered significantly in the west of Scotland by the pish and rain. However,
yes.
Genuinely, like if I get up in the morning for my work and I get on my bike and I cycle in, it's only 5 miles, but see that those 5 miles on my bike with my legs pumping and the blood pumping, it takes, like, I genuinely don't have time to sit and worry, or this is stressing me at work, or this is, you're driving to work and it's second nature. Like, apart from, I know it's a bad turn of phrase, but you could literally drive with your eyes closed up. So when you're doing that task, which is so second nature, it allows you time for your mind to wonder and go, oh, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. So my personal sort of protective armour is I love cycling into it. I think it sets me up for the rest of the day. And I'll just getting out with my dogs. I love walking the dogs, and I think that's quite beneficial as well for me. But you need to kind of find your own kind of. I did. Sorry, I know you've probably got loads of questions, and I'm waffling. But
no, I mean, waffle away is good.
I did some training last week actually, by a charity, Lifelines Scotland. I found it massively helpful. They basically go in and discuss the sort of first 5 modules are all about mental health and discussing not only your own mental health and how you can protect yourself against, going further downhill from trauma and things like that, but also how to be a good peer supporter and a good listener and help others. We're all in this together, and we're very guilty, I think, of just like we did this morning. I know you're okay because I speak to you regularly, but we meet people and we go, "How are you?" And then you go, "Aye," and you might not be fine, but you say that, and actually see if you just take the time to go, "No, how are you, Greg?" And actually show an interest.
I am actually.
I know, but how many times are you asked, even if you're having a shite day, how many times are you asked, and you either say, "I am fine," or "living the dream," or something else. It ends the conversation, and the person who's asking you how you are generally probably doesn't care, and you say it back. You're like, so that was very interesting. Sort of the input was on becoming a sort of a more empathic listener, and I did that training, right, and I thought I was quite an empathic listener anyway, obviously, but I was at work like the day after or the day after that, I think maybe 2 days later, and I was like, I'm just going to actually put slightly more effort into listening to people and talking through what their problems are and stuff. And honestly, I must have got caught in about 3-hour-long conversations with people, and it was really interesting. It was really supportive for them. They clearly needed it, but I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get back to my work here. Just take the time to actually speak to people and to ask how they are, and also if you're feeling shit or something's bothering you, speak to someone. I think that would be my takeaway from it. I found, I'm pretty sure we spoke on numerous occasions about my struggles, and yeah, there's always somebody there to listen, and it might be harder to speak to someone about it. In that regard, there are ample charities, which I'm going to find at the end of this lifeline.
Like, obviously, as close as me and you are, just as friends, even outside of work, did you feel awkward talking to me about it? Because I didn't feel awkward at all when you first started. So I remember we were away for a walk at Bowden Boo with the dogs, and that was kind of when you were first telling me about it. I think you'd spoke to me on the phone about it, and then you'd said to go for a walk. So I was like, cool, definitely go for a walk. Did you feel awkward talking to me about it?
I think to begin with, yeah, because you kind of build up this big strong ego of I'm invincible, I can deal with this job, and especially if you see the person you're speaking to like dealing with that job I think it's quite, it was awkward to begin with. However, what I found was really, really changed it for me. Like, see if you're driving in the car, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but if you're driving in the car with someone, I always have the deepest conversations in the car, and I think it's because you're not making eye contact. You're looking at the road, or you should be looking at the road. You're looking at the road. Your passenger's looking at the road, and you can just talk to each other, but not have this awkward eye contact. And I think it was probably the same with the dog walks that we used to go on. We could just saunter along through the and just chat, sort of speak about what was bothering us, and just not have to make this awkward eye contact, and I think that was a big benefit.
So if you do want to speak to someone, either go for a drive or go for a dog walk.
Well, just there are so many different. Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear you.
So I'm saying, if you are going to talk to someone about it, you just go for a drive or go for a walk through the woods with the dogs, so you don't have to look at each other.
Yeah, I think that's probably sound advice, but or certainly it's benefited me massively. So,
So mainly for yourself, then, it was kind of finding your own sort of things that made you feel better. And I know that kind of took you a while because you weren't like cycling to work or doing much, and that was something you started doing. Obviously, me and you went for a couple of bike rides as well. So was that you almost, because I think for myself, like, I've always had, again, the gym. I've had things like Thai boxing. I've had things to go to outside of work. And I don't know if that's why I was never impacted by stuff at work, because it was always very easy to switch off because I always had stuff to do when I got home. So did you find that you were then kind of almost looking for these things when you were going through that, because she'd said to you, like, try and find almost like an outlet or a distraction or something that makes you feel a bit better? Is that why you started doing these things?
I don't even think I avoided it, or I tried not to avoid how it was feeling. But yeah, I think so. I found these, I think not only does the cycling help the sort of mental side of things, but it also helps the symptoms that came with the mental symptoms we're creating, in terms of like my stomach feeling rubbish and all that. So yeah, I think I just tried these things and found that they helped, and then I was like, yeah, that's my thing. But yeah, I don't know if I was actively was like, I need to find something, but people have got hobbies that they do. It doesn't need to be exercise. It doesn't need to be the gym, but even if you're into, I don't know, knitting or anything, just something that you can be comfortable with and something.
And do you feel better now, mate, with that? Obviously, I know your job roles changed a lot as well, but even just day to day, is it something that's improved?
Yeah, I mean, we all live with this sort of baseline level of stress, and it's been able to deal with that. I think stress is healthy from some, or a certain amount of it is. But yeah, I don't know how. I'm not operational just now, so I don't know how it will manifest itself. Should I become operational again in the film? I would love to become operational. The best bit about the job is, as I said, driving cars on blue lights and helping people and smashing doors down. But yeah, we would have to cross that bridge when I come to it. I think I mentally am in a great place. Just there are constant struggles within life. Life throws you stuff, different stresses. I just got married last year. That was more stress than I think I've ever felt in the job for the organisation of it. It's actually ridiculous. But these massive things that are thrown your way, that you kind of have to deal with this on the roller coaster of life. But I think if you find your sort of own protective armor and you make sure you speak to people, yeah, I'm kind of waffling on about that's my method to it. But I'm going to find all the stuff. Certainly, lifelines that I'm talking about a second ago. They are for basically all blue light services in Scotland, so ambulance, fire, police, and I think they do the sort of volunteer responders as well. So yeah.
Okay.
And
they've got a web where you can.
Yeah, they've got a website as well with loads of helpful resources on. But
and what is the website, mate?
www.lifelines.scot. That's yeah, that's a good place.
Well, I don't really have any more questions to go through. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
But I hope I was okay.
Again, thank you. That was superb, mate. Thank you very much for coming on and talking about these things, because I think this is what we should be doing, talking more about these things so that other people feel more confident talking about them as well.
Absolutely.
So yeah, all 5 people who watch it, mate, will be very grateful. So thank you very much.
I hope so. No worries at all, mate. It's good to speak to you, and it's good to speak about this as well. Hopefully it helps somebody. Hopefully it helps one person. Yeah. That'll be worth it.
Even if it helps one person to reach out through fucking occupational health or get something from it, like, it's worth its weight in gold doing it.
Yeah.
Do you think,
absolutely.
Obviously, from what we've been over, just the last one, then, if you hadn't went through your supervisors, went through Occy Health, and then spoken to that girl, do you think you would have came on as much as you are now from that, or do you think you'd still be struggling a lot?
I think I probably the struggle would have got to the point where I'd have just looked for alternative means. I think if I hadn't got help through them, I would have seriously been. I mean, I was pretty disappointed in the actual job's response to how I was feeling. I think things have moved on. We're 4 years down the line. There's a lot more importance placed upon mental health. I think they said at the time, "Oh, your well-being matters" and all that. But actually, I think it was a bit of a facade to some degree. But I've noticed, the job is making strides in that department. So yeah, I think I probably would have.
Which is good. I think for the people like you who actually need it, you're going to be the last ones to try and do it until it's like, this is my last fucking thing to do. Like, I don't know what else to do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it is.
And the nature of the job is that we're exposed to more trauma than the average person. So yeah, look after yourself.
I mean, even that weekend, mate, like, I still vividly remember incidents from that weekend. I remember seeing that guy in the street and closing the road off for you guys. I remember then going round to a guy who'd been stabbed like 4 or 5 times standing outside the house, but there was like no blood. It was a very strange one.
Yeah.
I remember that other guy got murdered. They then opened his chest up and were pumping his heart. I remember that girl telling me that.
Yeah.
Fucking horrific. And then there was the other one.
There was one up in I'm not even going to say the street name, but near the homeless accommodation that same weekend, and that guy was wearing a stab vest, and he still got, more holes than a block of Swiss cheese put in him, and it was just horrific.
But then you think of that weekend. So I remember me and Sean had pretty much been to all of those incidents. And you think, imagine the normal person just saw 3 or 4 people who'd been murdered on a Friday and Saturday night and then went home. Like, you shouldn't. You should, because you're in the job and you've chosen to do the job. That was my thinking about it. I was like, well, it's just my thing to deal with. I need to go home and switch off however I need to switch off. But it is kind of fucked up when you think about it. So there should be things in place for people who are then impacted by it, like yourselves. So good.
There's other ways that you deal with it. There's other ways that you deal with it with your shift, like, even and I know we say, oh, it's terrible, but dark humour. You've got to laugh about these things sometimes, and used in the right context, it's actually a really good tool.
It's like the fatal road accident. Remember the one that we had with the kids in it? Mm-hmm. And then there was obviously the picture.
I do remember that, yeah.
A picture of me, by the way, not of the scene. It was just a picture of me at the scene. But we'll not be fucking showing it.
I wondered when that would come up, but that's maybe another podcast. We'll get those
like that,
pictures
because
up.
now, even for me, like, as stupid as that is, I still remember that instant. But the main thing I remember from that instant is me and you laughing at that picture that was of me in the newspaper. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, it does the dark humor side of things. I think the shift side of things, even going out with your shift and spending time with them, because it is difficult to speak to like your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, if they're not in the job. I think that's why the police is so incestuous, because no one else understands it. And you go home and say, how was work? That was fine. And you've dealt with like 3 sudden deaths, fatal road accident, like, it was fine. Trying to sit and eat your dinner and talk about the weekend, going to see a movie.
And some things you can't even speak. Some things are that sensitive that you can't actually speak about with anyone outside of work. So if something is really bothering you and you go, well, actually, I can't really speak to my wife about that because of X, Y, and Z.
And I think you almost feel selfish. Like, even if, like, I went to see my mum or something at the weekend, she'd be, oh, how was work? And I'd just be like, yeah, it's fine. I wouldn't want to, like, burden them with the stuff that you deal with. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it was a suicide or anything like that, like, because it just brings the mood down. Like, if you go for, like, a barbecue, like, you were at my house the other week for a barbecue. If you go for a barbecue, somebody goes, how's work? You go, I dealt with this guy who killed himself the other day in front of his kids. Just goes silent. You're like, so you can't even really talk about it normally with a normal event. Well done, you fucking party, mate. Like, But no, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I appreciate that massively, and I'm sure a lot of other people will appreciate that. And if anyone's got any questions, you can message me. I'll message Gus directly, and we can, I don't know, find out about the names of the other services that you'd mentioned, mate, as well.
Yeah,
thank you very much, mate. I'll drop you a wee message off the back of this anyway, and enjoy your Sunday. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Right, see you, mate.
Bye-bye.